Well, you're not going to believe this. The Arabs and the Muslims actually issued a statement prior to the vote supporting the Trump initiative. Why would they succeed now? You see, I know Gaza and I know the history of Gaza like the back of my hand. I know so well what is going to happen. Is this what we expected from you? All of these years calling our Muslim brother and this and that. And this is what you agree to be part of the Trump stabilization force that is there to humiliate and to kill and to control the Palestinians. Shame on you. But what I'm trying to have you understand here, that bad things are gonna follow this. United Nations Security Council Resolution 2803 is unequivocally rejected. United Nations Security Council Resolution 2803 is unequivocally rejected. It makes absolutely no sense. Well, it does make some sense from an Israeli-American point of view, in the sense that Israel is now capable of trying to achieve in Gaza what it has failed to achieve using military means, except that Israel is now not alone in trying to achieve its objectives in Gaza, which is to completely subdue and crush the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian political will in Gaza. You see, the problem of what has taken place in the last 2 years, as far as Israel is concerned, is the fact that Palestinians have developed not only a sense of agency, they actually managed to carry out that agency in a way that made it impossible for the US and Israel to articulate the end game. This is not typical of the history of this so-called conflict. Always somehow Israel wins. Not because Israel is a powerful country, but because it's always backed by powerful Western countries. But this time, even with the backing of all of these Western powers, Israel failed to achieve anything in Gaza. It emerged humiliated, in fact, in some sense also defeated. So it resorted to the Trump administration, Jared Kushner, Tony Blair, and all the rest in other Western allies regimes that came together, and they said, well, what can we do in order for us to somehow make Israel appear as a winner and to manipulate the Palestinians, who are, of course, weakened by the war, but also in a situation that is beyond horrific. Their hospitals destroyed, their schools destroyed, there is no food, there's no water in Gaza. Anything and everything has to come through Israeli checkpoints and Israeli crossings. Well, we can use and manipulate this leverage over the Palestinians to achieve the same political ends that Israel has tried and failed to achieve through 2 years of genocide. Thus, UN Resolution 2803 that was approved on November 17th, with 13 voting at the Security Council, 13 voting in favor, and 2 abstained from the vote, and they are China and Russia. And that's really where another version of that mockery emerges. China and Russia, who at one point wanted to veto the resolution because it was so unfair to the Palestinians, and because it gave the Americans a stronghold now, in the an additional stronghold in the Middle East, because they are going to be building this massive military base in the so-called Gaza envelope, and they are going to be using their tools, these countries that are going to participate in the so-called international stabilization force, to impose their will on the Palestinians in Gaza. And you would say, well, maybe this is a peacekeeping force. It's not. It's an American-led force which main job is actually to disarm the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, which Israel has failed to do so over the course of 2 years. Does it have a political council, a political branch? Yes, it does. A government of sort called the Board of Peace, or the Peace Council, which is going to be led by no other than the pathetic American president, Donald Trump, who's rejected by his own people and who has no international legitimacy whatsoever. Well, the Board of Peace, or the Peace Council, is going to be the legitimizing force, or the legitimizing platform, so Trump can now start wheeling and dealing in the Middle East to push Russian and Chinese influence out and to ensure that Israel and Arab regimes are, are normalizing and everything is going according to Israeli and American visions and diktats. Well, where are the Arabs in all of this? Well, you're not going to believe this. The Arabs and the Muslims actually issued a statement prior to the vote supporting the Trump initiative, which basically creates an American mandate, if you will, over the Palestinians. The Arabs are supporting the very incarceration and the very humiliation and the very marginalization of the Palestinians, while the Russians and the Chinese are saying no. Now, you would say, why didn't the Russians and the Chinese veto the resolution? Because they couldn't. They have their own interest in the region, they have their own Arab allies, and they are doing good business in the Middle East, and they need that kind of relationship. They couldn't be holier than thou. And by the way, I have been in so many situations in the past where I would go to some country somewhere and I would say, please do not normalize with Israel. And, various officials from that country would come and say, you want us not to normalize while the Arabs are normalizing, while the Muslims are normalizing? It kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense that we expect the world to be more pro-Palestine than those who have inherited the Palestinian cause, the Arabs and the Muslims, are not. And this is a similar situation here. So Russia and China did not veto the resolution that is clearly unfair because the Arabs told them not to, and because they have their own interests and their own ties with Arab countries. To the point that the Russian representative, and this is a third mockery, the Russian representative at the UN Security Council protested and explained why his country abstained from the vote by protesting and saying, because you are marginalizing the Palestinian Authority. There is no Palestinian Authority influence in this. The Palestinian leadership has no role to play. Now, he couldn't say, well, you are marginalizing the resistance. Well, we are not at a political, level in which we can expect that from Russia or anyone else speaking at the UN Security Council. But at least he said the Palestinian Authority is not being represented. The Palestinian Authority, in turn, comes around and says, we welcome the UN resolution. Wait a minute. You are welcoming the very UN resolution that existed to marginalize you and make Tony Blair the new governor of Gaza, along with Trump and Jared Kushner and others? And in a way, you are rejecting the overture of the Russians themselves, who are saying we have taken that position in solidarity with the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority, in their own way, said, we don't really care about your solidarity. We are fine being marginalized. Well, why does the Palestinian Authority want to be marginalized if they are truly a leadership of any kind? Because of the money, my friend. As long as the Palestinian Authority keeps its mouth shut, as long as the money keeps flowing and millionaires become richer and more villas and more VIP cards, and they are living the good life. It's not about Palestinian sovereignty and Palestinian resistance and Palestinian agency. Stop with this BS. Those who are still out there supporting the Palestinian Authority, despite of everything that the PA has done to conspire against the Palestinian people, need to stop. You are not helping the Palestinians, you are hurting the Palestinians, and you are making us look as if we are divided, when in actuality we are not. We have a Palestinian leadership by name only that works with Israel and follows the diktats of Israel, the United States, and Arab regimes. While we have a Palestinian people in all of their political manifestations and ideologies, including many of the supporters of the main political party in the West Bank, Fatah, who are actually against all of this. So it's either you support the Palestinian people or you don't. But don't play this game that you are trying to be in the middle and you are trying to be very cautious about the sensitivities and the sensibilities of the Palestinian political scenes. There is no sensitivities and there is no sensibilities. There is a collaborating Palestinian Authority that is funded by American imperialism and is accepted by Israel. And there's a Palestinian people who are fighting against all of this. Now, will they succeed? I don't think so. Well, why don't I think so? I'm not just being overtly optimistic. They will not succeed for a reason that's happening now in the present time and reasons that happened in the past. The reason of today, the present reasons and rationale why this is not going to succeed, because Israel has failed. Israel tried to occupy Gaza and to destroy the resistance of Gaza and evac the population of Gaza and to have total security control over Gaza and all of this, and they have failed. And they haven't failed because Israel has failed. They have failed because Israel and everyone who supported Israel has failed. We are looking at over 60 countries that contributed to the Israeli genocide in a massive way and an overt way, like the United States and Britain and Germany, especially Germany, Italy, and France and others. And those who were supporting and funding and financing Israel and feeding Israel with its needs of oil and energy and commerce and all of this. And they include some Arab countries and some Muslim countries as well. And yet they all utterly and completely failed to subdue the Palestinians in Gaza, or to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians in Gaza, or to give Israel the total security control over Gaza. Why would they succeed now? You see, I know Gaza and I know the history of Gaza like the back of my hand. I know so well what is going to happen the moment that a child in Gaza is hurt by this so-called stabilization force. There would be 1 million Palestinian, or even the entirety of the Palestinian population of Gaza, 2 million plus, or whatever number that remained after the Israeli genocide, who are going to take on the streets, and they are going to clash directly using popular mobilization with this so-called stabilization force, i.e. the new American colonial arm in Palestine. What are you going to do now? Azerbaijan or whomever is going to be involved in this force. Indonesia, is this what we expected from you? All of these years calling our Muslim brother and this and that, and this is what you agree to be part of the Trump stabilization force that is there to humiliate and to kill and to control the Palestinians? Shame on you. Shame on any government anywhere in the world that comes to sweep the political outcomes of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Whether you are a Muslim or a non-Muslim, it really doesn't matter. But I am telling you, this is gonna fail. Now, if you are gonna look at the past, whether the various UN Security Council resolutions that were dictated or influenced by American decisions, or the likes of the Roger plans. The first version of the Roger plan in 1969 tried to achieve peace between Israel and Egypt at the expense of the Palestinians. And what happened? Nothing happened. Then Roger plans 2, I think it was in 1970 or 71, they tried to do the same thing and they failed. The Oslo Accords, what did that achieve aside from taking a small percentage of the Palestinian people, giving them privileges over the rest of the Palestinian masses, creating a wealthy class at the expense of the working classes and the poor Palestinians, and say, you know what, maybe you can manage the occupation for us, Mahmoud Abbas, Yasser Arafat and all others. And at the end they are a political platform that maybe has legitimacy from the eyes of the US and other donor countries, but no legitimacy amongst the Palestinians themselves. And if you don't believe me, check out the opinion polls, where neither the Palestinian Authority nor any of its officials or leaders have any serious legitimacy among the Palestinians themselves. They have done this from Camp David to the Roger plans to the Oslo Accords. Nothing has worked. Is it going to work now, when Palestinians are in the ultimate culmination of their collective agency, where they have defeated the Israeli army in Gaza, when entire Arab countries couldn't advance an inch against Israel? They are going to succeed now. No, they won't. Of course they won't. But what I'm trying to have you understand here, that bad things are going to follow this. If this is implemented, if you are going to see a stabilization force storming against the Palestinians in Khan Yunis and Zaytun neighborhood in Gaza and the Maghazi, we are going to be in big trouble here, because you are going to have a return to the Israeli genocide with an umbrella of some kind of international legitimacy that is being governed by the United States and by the likes of Tony Blair and other pathetic leaders. This is going to be a huge problem, so we have to be very, very aware of it. I tell you, based on my understanding from Gaza history, that the Palestinians will neither surrender to this new US imposed reality, nor they will find themselves in a situation where they have no options. There's always options because the Palestinian people are the option. Their steadfastness, their resistance, their sumud is the option. Resistance is not a gun. And I've said that 1,000 times. I'm getting sick and tired of saying it. It's not about ta-ta-ta-ta shooting in the air. If it's about bullets and guns, the Palestinian Authority will have much greater or should be a much greater concern for Israel than the Palestinians in Gaza, because they have 100,000 security forces, but they are not working against Israel, they are working against the Palestinians. It's not about guns. So when they say let's disarm the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, what are you disarming exactly? The Palestinian resistance in Gaza is sumud. This is their bread and butter of resistance, their steadfastness. Their steadfastness can turn into a slingshot, into a gun, into a fist, into civil disobedience, into anything and everything. You can't disarm that. You can't disarm that, because it's that will, is that resistance, is that steadfastness that is indeed creating this phenomenon that we call the Gaza resistance. It's not about the individuals themselves. And it's not about the kind of weapons that they are manufacturing in the tunnels. It's about the will of the collective will of the people. It's about sumud and it's about resistance. And you can't disarm that. So knowing that in advance, so what are you going to do there, the stabilization force? You're going to create a buffer zone for Israel so that Israel would incrementally take over more than half of Gaza, 53 to 58% of the whole size of Gaza, which is already very, very tiny. 141 square miles, 360 or 65 square kilometers. And now all of Gaza, the survivors of Gaza, are all crammed into this tiny little area of about 40% plus. That are completely surrounded by Israel. So you're going to have Israel, and then you are going to have this US-led international stabilization force, and you are going to have the Palestinians, and you are going to manipulate them. You want reconstruction? We will do it if you do this for us. You want food? No problem. The food is waiting on the other side, but you have to concede to this political demand and so forth and so on. Do you think Gaza is going to accept that? No, my friend, because Gaza is not Mahmoud Abbas and it's not his Palestinian Authority. That exchange is not going to happen. So, but what could and will happen if we do not understand this and fight against it collectively, mobilize against it, protest against it, ensure that no government is going to take part and play a role in this, is to spare the blood of so many Palestinians and to stop taking us backward while we should be moving forward. Now Palestinians have agency and they have very clear demands on what they want, and the entire world is mobilizing around them. We cannot disown them now because of Trump's silly peace council, along with Tony Blair, one of the biggest surviving war criminals from the Iraq days. So please try to understand that, communicate it to others, and measure your next moves, your next mobilizations, your peaceful protests, and civil disobedience efforts, regardless of where you are in the world, based on that understanding. And thank you very much.